I land, I turn my phone on, and there's a message telling me I'm not welcome at the dinner I flew home early specifically to attend. And my raging, undiagnosed ADHD was the reason why. Last week, we talked about lifestyle stuff, the non-medication side of managing ADHD, the practical day-to-day of it. But there's a part of this that's less practical and a lot heavier. And today we're going there. Grief. Nobody warns you that getting diagnosed doesn't just explain your past. It makes you grieve it. The years you spent thinking you were lazy or rude or too much. The friendships that nearly didn't survive you not knowing what was actually going on in your head. Anyway. This is Anyway, I Have ADHD, a podcast for people whose brains work on a different operating system and nobody gave them the manual. I'm Han, late diagnosed ADHD, mum of two, founder of NeuroSpice Nation, and still slightly confused by the fact that nobody noticed for 31 years. Not one person. It's almost like they've never met me. Every week we pick apart a different corner of ADHD life. The stuff that's funny now, but wasn't at the time. The stuff that's still not funny. And the stuff that's actually useful. No shame. No hustle, no wellness bro energy. Just chaos, but warm chaos, with takeaways and hopefully you feeling slightly less alone or crazy. Today we're talking about grief, not the kind you're expecting, the kind that shows up months after your diagnosis in a Coles car park over something that has nothing to do with ADHD on the surface and everything to do with it underneath. Anyway, let's get into it. So a while back I had a friend. I'm going to call her Allison. That's not her name, but it will make the story easier to follow. And this friendship blew up. Here's what happened. I was in a state and it was my bestie's birthday coming up. And I made this whole plan to fly home early and surprise them for it. I was really excited. Then while I was literally boarding the plane, I found out Allison had planned a birthday dinner for them and another friend, just the three of them. So I thought, perfect. I'll just join that instead of doing my own separate surprise. I texted Allison as I was boarding, something like, how exciting, send me the details, I'll just surprise them there, thinking it was no big deal. I landed, turned my phone back on and had a message waiting for me. Allison said I couldn't come. She just wanted it to be the three of them. I was shocked, hurt, a bit confused, honestly. So I called her. I explained the whole thing again, that I'd flown home specifically for this, and it wasn't a huge ask. I just wanted to be there for my bestie's birthday. Allison still said no. And I remember sitting with that feeling genuinely stung, thinking, why would you exclude me from this? When all I was trying to do was show up for someone I loved. That's when everything else came out. Allison said I was rude. And I quote, always inserting myself into their conversations and interrupting. Once it started, it didn't stop there. That I made things about me. That I didn't let anyone finish a sentence. So the exclusion from the birthday wasn't really about the birthday at all. It was the final straw on something that had clearly been bothering her for a long time. And on the outside, Allison wasn't wrong about the interrupting. I did do it, constantly. What I didn't have back then was any language for why. Because here's the thing that was actually happening in my head every single time. Someone would be talking and I'd have a thought. A genuinely relevant one, connected to what they were talking about. And I just knew that if I didn't get it out right then, it would be gone. Not I'll circle back to it, gone, like it never existed. So while she experienced someone who didn't care what she was saying, what was actually happening was my brain screaming, say it now or lose it forever, while she was still mid-sentence. I wasn't trying to dominate the conversation. I was trying to be part of it and feel a part of a group that was so important to my bestie. It wasn't until years later, after I got diagnosed and I had a realization that I went, oh, that's what it was. That wasn't me being a selfish ass. That was my brain's working memory doing exactly what an undiagnosed ADHD brain does. Dropping a thought the second it came to me before something else could take its place and the moment was gone. Allison and I are okay now, but her words and that hurt have never really left me. And I feel like from that day, I could never truly be myself with her again. I still think about that day a lot because it almost cost me some really important relationships. It's the clearest example I have of how much damage undiagnosed ADHD can do to the people around you. Not because you don't care, because nobody, including you, knew what was actually going on. Okay, so here's the thing nobody tells you. What you're feeling isn't you being dramatic. There's actual research on this now. It's called post-diagnosis grief. And a study out late last year did a deep thematic analysis and found it moves through recognizable stages. Same as any other grief. Except instead of grieving a person, you're grieving a version of your life that could have existed if someone had caught this decades earlier. And here's the bit that makes it extra messy. With regular grief, eventually you build a new routine without the thing you lost, and that's how you heal. With this, there's no new routine without it. You still have to get up every day and live in the brain that caused the grief in the first place. It's not something you move past, it's something you learn to live alongside. This isn't just a vibe, by the way. Research on adult ADHD diagnosis has linked delayed diagnosis to years of anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem that had nothing to do with the ADHD itself and everything to do with decades of being misunderstood. A systematic review of women diagnosed in adulthood found the exact same pattern. It hit to emotional well-being, messier relationships, a constant sense of not being in control of your own life. And some of what you're grieving isn't even about you. It's the relationships. Because here's a wild stat. One study found that more than 91% of adults with ADHD said they'd hidden, suppressed, or compensated for their traits just to get through social situations. And researchers looking specifically at how ADHD adults camouflage in conversations found people describing exactly what I went through with Alison, interrupting to get thoughts out before they vanish, then getting read as rude, self-centered, and just too much. So if you've got your own version of that friendship blow-up sitting in your memory, you're not imagining the pattern. It's documented, and it's grievable too. The friendships that got harder than they needed to be, the times when you were too much for reasons nobody, including you, understood yet. There's also a name for why you're bone tired on top of all of that grief. That same research on masking found it leaves people feeling exhausted, disconnected from themselves, and less close to the people around them, even when the masking technically worked and got them through the room. So the exhaustion isn't separate from the grief. It's a part of it. You weren't just surviving conversations, you were performing them every single time. So what do you actually do with all of this? Honestly, most grief advice is useless because it tells you to sit with your feelings. And if you've got an ADHD brain, you cannot just sit with a feeling. It will hijack your whole nervous system and ruin your Wednesday. So instead, give it a job. Set a timer, 10 minutes, and write down every single thing you're actually angry about. Actual specifics. The teacher who called you lazy. The report card. The friend who said you just needed to try harder. Get it out of your head and onto paper where it can't run the show anymore. And the research does end somewhere good for what it's worth. That same review on women found that after the hard part, the dominant theme that showed up was self-acceptance. Not everyone gets stuck in the grief forever. Most people land somewhere steadier. You're allowed to trust that you'll get there too, in your own time, on your weird non-linear timeline. So here's what I want you to take away from this. Grief after diagnosis is real. It's allowed to be messy. It's allowed to take way longer than you think it should. And it doesn't mean anything's wrong with you if you're still working through it years later. You're not stuck, you're just on a non-linear timeline, same as everyone else doing this. Here's your one thing for this week. If you catch yourself spiraling on something you're angry about from before diagnosis, here's the move. Set a timer for 10 minutes and write down every specific thing you're actually angry about. Not vague feelings, actual specifics. Get it out of your head and onto paper so it stops running the show. And because I know that half of you are probably already thinking, cool, that's great, but I'll actually never do this without a template, I've made one for you. It's a free worksheet, it's got the prompts and the structure already there, so all you have to do is show up and fill it in. Link's in the show notes, so go and grab it. Before we go, a very important reminder. This podcast is not a substitute for professional medical or mental health advice. If anything in this episode has stirred up something heavier for you, please reach out to a professional or call Lifeline on 131114. They're there 24/7. Next week, we're talking about the thing nobody prepares you for once you've got the diagnosis, actually telling people. Who do you tell? When do you tell them? And what happens when you do and they don't take it well? Because trust me, I've got stories. Anyway, I have ADHD, and if you're here, you probably do too. You're not broken, you're just a lot. New episodes every Wednesday. Follow the show so you don't miss one. And if you do forget to follow and then forget the show exists entirely, no judgment. That's why I'm also on Instagram and TikTok at NeuroSpice Nation. Come find me, send me a DM, tell me your diagnosis story. I genuinely want to hear it. It's not just something I say. If today's episode helped even a little, a rating or review goes a long way. And it's how other spicy brains find the show. And quite frankly, my ego could use it. See you next week.